There he
Ah,
is. Oh, ha ha. Excellence awaits everyone.
oh yes, yes, yes. Redux indeed. It's funny that we're talking all about remakes and redos, and we're doing one ourselves.
Yes, we need to do one due to a technical glitch on my part. I'll take
Oh,
full
one of
responsibility.
those things. One of those things. Yeah.
Joining us, ladies and gentlemen, is everyone's favorite Eric Mark, the intrepid producer, actor, and man about town, who we all know and love, who recently celebrated an anniversary of sorts. Am I right?
Yeah, what people call the craniversary. Like so, the 1 year anniversary of my craniotomy. So, had a little brain tumor, not that little, golf ball size. Well, I guess depends how much brain you have in there, whether that's big or small.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, that part's
Resection.
debatable, but
Yeah,
the
exactly.
tumor's real.
Tumor's real, yeah. Relative to whatever else might have been in there, it's hard to tell.
We're just giving you a hard time. It's no secret we were very worried about that at that point in time. And we had the privilege of going to an epic art show put on by my daughter, but prior to that, we had something where we were in a rather average at best Thai place, expressing our concerns.
Well, yes, which were much appreciated, and helped me get through the entire ordeal, including the surgery itself. I will
Mm.
say that Thai place, at least it had a restroom,
It did.
which members of our
It
party used.
Yes, it
I think
did.
they were hesitant to let us use it, but we managed to talk them into it. So it's got that going for it.
It did have that going for it. It's a place I haven't returned to, hadn't been at before or since, but they did have a restroom. All right, so
Hey, well, let's just give props where they're due. Art show was fun and excellent, primarily because Sean's stuff was excellent. So
yeah,
there were some other good pieces there, but she walked away with the kudos.
good man, Eric Mark. You know where to lay down the compliments, man. I'm indebted to you. Lots happening this week since we saw each other, and it's always good to catch up with Eric Mark. He is one of our favorite personalities. We originally got together for a conversation to remember Robert Duvall, who was a man who came through my office at Warner Brothers with Milius a few times. And we had talked about his epic work. Since then, we lost both Emmy-winning producer Gary Donzig, who did a lot for NMOSD patients and was a co-creator on Hannah Montana with our boy Stephen Peterman, one of the writers of A Combat Radio Christmas Carol. But we also lost Robert Carradine this week, who most of us know from the Long Riders, Revenge of the Nerds, The Big Red One. So lots happened since we talked last.
Indeed, I mean a tough week if you're a Robert. Be careful about stepping out off those curbs and off into the roadway.
Yeah, right. Um, my heart broke for obviously Keith Carradine, who
Yeah,
did do a Combat Radio Christmas Carol with us a few years back. Um, to lose now both brothers.
it's so tough. I saw a very nice post from Martha Plimpton, the
Mm,
daughter, just saying what a fine person Robert was, and
yeah.
going so far as to say he was the favorite of her uncles, both as a person and as a performer.
He was a favorite for a lot of people. I mean, he was very endearing, fun to be around. I saw Martha at Peter Jason's memorial. She performed,
Mm.
and
Oh no.
for those who are trying to place it, she was one of the Goonies. But yeah, they were both there. Bobby, Keith zoomed in from a location, I think, but uh, Bobby Carradine and Martha were both at Peter Jason's memorial at the Writers Guild, which is one of the finest I've ever been to. One of the most
Mm.
sincere, one of the most, the thing about Peter Jason and Sandy King, the producer, who's married to John Carpenter, and Carpenter spoke. She said it best. She said, Peter Jason made everyone feel like he was their best friend.
Mm.
And he really he turned friendship into an art, I would say. So, yeah, and that anniversary actually just popped up on the social media timelines. It's like, wow,
Oh
here
wow.
we are. We lose Robert Carradine, and then, we're all reminded about the tremendous loss that was Peter Jason, who, of course, uh, did Christmas Carol every year for us, in part because he just wanted to be around the talent that was Eric Mark. Incredible talent that he is. He just
I
wanted
wish
to.
I wish that were true, but no, I think he's just a solid guy, just doing solid work, both professionally but also for great causes like ours, and just
Yeah.
a pleasure to be around and a pleasure to have participate.
Yeah, yeah. We did a broadcast last night talking about some of the highlights of Robert Carradine. We'd arranged a screening of A Big Red One at the Whittier Film Festival for him with Senator
Hmm.
Bob Archuleta, and that was kind of a unique experience for him. He had a chance to see the movie, which is, I think, the film he was most proud of, was A Big Red One, where he played Sam Fuller, and he had a chance to see it again on the big screen with a theater audience, and he looked like he was having a great time. I love him for The Long Riders. I knew him as an action star before he did the Revenge of the Nerds, which is what most people know him as. And of course, he
Makes
does
sense.
have, yeah, he has that epic scene with Bernie Casey, of course, where it's swing low. They're doing they invited to the party and they don't know. They got like cotton picking anthems playing because they don't know any better and they're completely tone deaf. Funny stuff, man. Bernie Casey, also rest in peace, another Carpenter alum. But yeah, he gave us a lot of great moments. He was a nice person, and he did lead life to the fullest. He was 71 at the time of his death. So God bless him. Obviously, I can tell by your silence, Eric, that you're struggling to come up with a classic Robert Carradine moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I I don't know that there's one that just jumps right off the screen, but a lot of just again, solid work in different genres, just
Yeah.
and showing some versatility and tremendous skill along the way, and regardless what he's doing, I think bringing sort of a kind of joy to his audiences.
Right. Now, shifting gears. Um, we were hit with the loss of Robert Duvall.
Smell that? You smell that? Napalm, son! Nothing else in the world smells like that. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. You know, one time we had a hail bomb for 12 hours. When it was all over, I woke up. We didn't find one of them, not one stinking dink body. Smell! You know that gasoline smell? The whole hill. Smelled like victory. Someday this war's gonna end.
Yeah, shortly after, well, not that long after the loss of his good friend, and we're talking about that, Gene Hackman, who
Yeah.
died of that.
Roommates, supposedly, along with Dustin Hoffman in the early
Yeah,
days,
yeah.
correct?
Those,
Uh,
yeah, those are some solid actors there.
I mean, I can't claim to have known Duvall. He came through the office when I was working for Milius several times, very gracious. You know, he had a reputation. I did also see him out on around town more than once doing like the tango, like going to like tango clubs and like salsa clubs to do the tango. You know, he did that
Nice.
movie too, Assassination Tango, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think I saw it. I mean, I did see the film he directed. What's the one where he's like the religion, the apostle?
Well, yeah.
I mean, for me, I mean, people will point at things like 11 THX 1138, directed by Lucas, and you know, some like
Inspired
True.
by the short film 2187, which actually has a lot of callbacks in Star Wars.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the part of the show where Eric reminds us that 2187 was directed by a Canadian.
Oh, that's I wasn't even going to mention it, but since you bring it up, that's true. So yes, a Canadian film
Yeah.
that inspired the THX 1138, as well as the whole notion of the Force. So that was and by the way, for those who are following along, Princess Leia's cell number on the Death Star was 2187 as an homage, and then years later, Finn uh, number as a stormtrooper, I guess, or a Imperial pilot, I guess is what he was FN 2178. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
props and recalls to that.
Much deserved. You know, in A Christmas Carol, there's a scene where Rico Ross, who played Private Frost in Aliens, he's Ghost of Christmas Present. He takes Scrooge, who was Kurtwood Smith this year from RoboCop. Brilliant, brilliant actor, great guy to be around. And he takes him to the Cratchits, and the address is LV42126 or something from Aliens. I don't think anyone got it. No one in the room, I think, got. But there were a couple of writers backstage that were laughing at their own accomplishment, as it were. But, uh, but yeah, LV4126. I forget the exact designation, but it was in the script, and
I
we
mean,
let
it's
it
good if you
fly.
can, yeah, it's good if you can appreciate your own humor, right? So
Yeah, if
at the
no
very,
one else will laugh,
yeah,
be sure to laugh at
yeah,
yourself in the process. But you know, for us, like True Grit, obviously, where with John Wayne.
yeah. He's actually the one who shot. the Duke.
I remember that great line where he's like, "I need to ask you what
Spoiler,
your
spoiler,
intentions."
spoiler, spoiler.
Well,
I just gave a spoiler for True Grit, but yeah, okay, sorry.
well, it's yeah. If you haven't seen True Grit, which is now over 50 years old, maybe
That's on you, right? That's not on me.
yeah, it's on you at this
That's on the.
point. It's
Yeah,
on
okay,
yeah.
thank you.
It's
Yeah.
been remade, and
Yes.
so and it's a book, so by now you should know something about it. But um, he's like, I want to know what your intentions are. And the Duke is like, well, I mean to kill you today. One of the all-time great lines. Duke had a few of them, and of course, like we know him from Godfather, right? Which is
Yeah,
the
very much. One and
that's
two.
the yeah, one and two. Though I prefer him in one. And there's a scene in it. Help me with this, Eric. There's a moment in the Godfather where Brando, who we now all know nobody wanted at Gulf and Western until they did that like faux screen test to kind of they were going to give that to Laurence Olivier. They were pushing for Olivier. The studio wanted Olivier, and Olivier would have been good, but Olivier was sick, and Brando really does obviously deliver it. But he did this. They did the screen test in New York for Bloodhorn, or they screened it for Bloodhorn to give the final approval. And there's that scene where he's giving what Johnny Fontaine, the Sinatra character, basically
Yeah.
a hard time, and Fontaine is crying. And I like that Coppola staged it with Fontaine's back to the camera because he couldn't really do the convincing crying, so Coppola had to sort of block it differently. Smart director, but like the Godfather's giving Fontaine or some character shit, and Duvall just starts cracking up, and to me it looks like an outtake that they kept in because of how good it was. You know what? Do you know the scene I'm talking about? The moment I'm
I
talking
do,
about?
but I'm trying. I recall, but I yeah.
What to do? I don't know what to do. You can act like a man! What's the matter with you? Is this how you turn down a Hollywood Pinocchio that cries like a woman? What can I do? What can I do? What is it?
I recall, but I
He
certainly
just
don't know I don't know the answer to that question. I assume that's an interesting take on it. That it's
yeah. We talked in depth about The Godfather last time around. One of my favorites. I can't speak for you.
days ago when we originally talked about this. I'm just saying. Then we led into this and that and other things. One of the things we led into was your boy Boo Radley.
Right. Boo Radley. Duvall is Boo Radley, and Duvall in the Twilight Zone. That also came up.
Yeah. All
He
early
cut
stuff.
his teeth. The man cut his teeth, and paid his dues.
I mean, you're hanging out, in the early days, yeah, as you say, with Gene and Dustin. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to be doing some heavy lifting, and you're going to do some theater work, and then you're going to, hopefully,
I wouldn't.
take it all to the next level.
Do you think their like neighbors in the apartment building looked at those three guys and be like, "Nah, never gonna make it"?
I mean, they're not movie star looking guys.
No,
Maybe,
but they were excellent at what they did.
So yeah,
Or
some of
do.
the very
Hoffman's
best,
still
yeah.
with us. Hoffman's still with
Yeah,
us, so we should use the present.
You know,
But
speaking of theater and Hoffman, we were at I was at the Geffen Playhouse some years ago, standing in the lobby. I'm always one of those people, the start time's 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, let's say 8 o'clock, but it really means that the curtain goes up at 8:07, right? So I linger, like
mm,
the bell is ringing, calling you into the show. Everybody goes in. There's only two stragglers left in the lobby. Me and Dustin, and we gave each other the nod of, yeah, we're not going to go sit early. Why would we do that?
Dustin was actually looking for your approval in that move. Like, I'm gonna hold out. Are you holding out? Okay, you're holding out, Eric. Then I feel safe staying out here.
Well, I don't know,
Uh,
or the other way around. He didn't know if he should go in until I did. I mean,
right.
there's protocol.
Everyone takes their cues, their social cues from Eric Mark.
Yes, see what that guy's
Um,
doing? Do the opposite.
right. Do the the opposite. Also, Duvall in a film for a friend of mine, Michael Winner directed him in Lawman, and he
Hmm.
was quite good in it. And he was just one of a collection of henchmen, but makes an impact in his performance. And of course, Burt Lancaster was the star of that. Burt Lancaster also incidentally threatened to throw Michael Winner off a cliff during production. According to Winner told me that. Uh, Lancaster denied it later. I guess. But
I'm assuming that he did not actually do it. So
no, a winner was not thrown off a cliff. But
good.
you know, and then of course, obviously, Apocalypse Now is the movie. Apocalypse Now is the
Yeah.
film that I think everyone, at least he's only on screen for around
Oh,
11
everybody. No, no,
minutes.
but everybody remembers that and quotes him from that heavily, right?
Yeah, and of course, that's got my boss's fingerprints all over it. That is one. Kilgore is 100% Milius, and from top to bottom. And was it you that worked with the actors who played the surfers in that scene?
I do not think so.
Then that was Jeremy Ratchford who did something with the two actors who played the surfers in that. And it's such a funny moment. I mean, the one thing you can say about Apocalypse, it's layered in detail. Like if you look on the horizon of the shot, way back, there's atmosphere and fire and wind and crazy. And I just love that moment when he pops in and he wants nothing to do with Martin Sheen until they point out he's got like a world famous surfer with him, because there's that guy who's like on the ground holding his guts in with a frying pan, and like the Arvin commander's like, nah, fuck this guy, he's dead. And Duvall's like, anyone who takes a wound from like a caliber wound like that can drink from my canteen any day. And but before he can even get the water into the wounded man's mouth, he's like, hey man, I think one of those PBR operatives is Lance Johnson. And that canteen goes flying. Like, oh, do we have a wounded man here? I don't know. Away goes the canteen, and hello, you're a surfer. And he's like, you can cut out the sir crap. I'm Bill Kilgore. I'm a goofy foot. Like, it's just
We're all right with the tanks. It's all right, Captain. Captain Willard, I carried priority papers to ComSec Intelligence, 2 Corps. I understand the Trang has briefed you on the requirements of my mission. What mission? I haven't heard from the Trang. Sir, your unit's supposed to escort us into the north. Well, we'll see what we can do, but just stand in my way till this is done, Captain. Let's see what we have. 2 spades, 3 of spades, 4 diamonds, 6 of clubs, 8 of spades. Isn't one worth a jack of the whole bunch? 4 diamonds. Hey, Captain! What's that? Death card! What? Death card! Let Charlie know who did this! Cheer up, son. Fire in the hole!
This is an area that is controlled by the Vietcong and North Vietnamese. Tình báo cho chúng tôi biết làng này đã bị Việt Cộng và Cộng sản bắt. We are here to help you. Tôi đến đây là để giúp đỡ các bạn. We are here to extend a welcome hand to those of you who would like to return to the arms of the South Vietnamese government. This is an area that is controlled by the Vietcong and North Vietnamese.
Hey, what's this? What is this?
This man's hurt pretty bad, sir. About the only thing that's holding his guts in, sir, is that pot lid.
Yeah? What do you have to say?
This soldier is very busy. He wants water. He can drink patty water.
Get out of here! Give me that canteen. Any man brave enough to get out of here! Kick your fucking ass!
He's killing a lot of our people.
Any man brave enough to fight with his guts strapped on and drink from my canteen any day!
Hey, Colonel, I think one of those sailors is Lance Johnson, the surfer.
Wait, hey, sure.
Repeat, we have a body count. We have...
What's your name, sailor?
Gunner's mate third class, L. Johnson, sir. Gunner's mate third class.
Lance Johnson, the surfer?
Yes, sir.
Well, it's an honor to meet you, Lance. I've admired your nose riding for years. I like your cutback, too. I think you have the best cutback there is.
Hey, thank you, sir.
I didn't cut out the surcraft, Lance. I'm Bill Kilgore. I'm a goofy foot. This guy with you?
Milius. So Milius. And he's like, and then when they're like debating about whether or not to even move in, and take the point, and it's Martin Sheen's character that's like, hey, there's a really good offshore breeze at dawn, and he's like just kind of jabbing him. He's like, well, it's kind of hairy, and he's like, well, it's a 6-foot peak, and he's like, then all of a sudden the invasion is on. As soon as he hears he doesn't want to risk it until he hears there's a 6-foot peak, and then they're an immediate go. And he's like, that the details in that scene of like, Lance, go with Reg back to division, have him pick out a board for you, and bring me my Yater spoon, the 8.6. That's Milius. Like the level of detail, like to give you a board type and measurement, and to have it all play out to, Steve Surjik, who directed your cousin, I think, in Daredevil. And we were talking about, weigh in on this, Eric. We were talking about, could you pull a psyops move like that? Like, would they hear the music over the chopper attack, and would it do? And who the fuck cares? It's so good. It's like, who cares? It's just one of those movies where it shows him flipping on the reel to reel, and then they're zooming in on rockets and flare, all the mechanics, and everything is ready to go. And it's just we were really debating it. We're like, do you think you'd hear that? Do you think you'd hear that if you were on the ground? We're like, doesn't matter. It's pure opera on screen. It's like,
yes.
But Duvall,
cinematic experience.
I think you pointed out that, obviously, I love the smell of napalm in the morning is the legendary line, probably the line of his career. But the line, I think you pointed out, someone close to us, we were talking, and the line that seemed to sort of resonate with us is that line where he's telling the story, but he ends with the, someday this war is going to end. And I don't know what it is about that line or his delivery of that line or why it stays with me, but it stays with me, that line. What do you think? Thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say that just, thinking about wars in general, it's a haunting thought because sometimes, certainly with that conflict, you assumed it was going to end at some time, a lot before it did, and took a lot of mayhem, death, unfortunately, to get to its conclusion, and not a very satisfying one. Similar in more recent times to Afghanistan or any number of conflicts that we're facing. So
yeah, we talked at great length about the redo too, and I think you're a bigger fan of the redo, correct? Than
I don't know if I'm a bigger fan, but I have a great deal of appreciation for it. So yeah, just the notion you were talking about how. Yeah, just because there's more footage doesn't mean you should use it, and there's a reason it's not in it originally, in a lot of cases, and then yeah.
No, finish your thought.
No, because I was going to go off on another tangent.
Which you're welcome to do here, by the way. But that was actually John Milius's take, because I was at Warner Brothers and in his office when that was released, and I asked him how he felt about it, and he was just, I remember he just kind of threw up his hand and said, well, you're going to see why they cut it all out. I think privately it was regarded as another paycheck for Francis. It was just another. And there is some extended Duvall moments in it, and he claims to have been imitating Francis in the scene where he throws the bullhorn up, and he's like, and Francis supposedly goes, that's great. Where'd you get that from? And he's like, that's what you do when you're pissed off. But it's just an incredible movie, and Duvall is so good in it. And just, Duvall and Sheen, it's famous, it's well known now that Martin Sheen replaced Harvey Keitel on the project, and he and Duvall were roommates during production. And I just kind of wonder what that's like. Was Duvall Kilgore like off set? You know how some actors do, or do you think he flipped a switch and turned it off? Do you think he was Kilgore?
It may have been part of what gave Marty the heart attack.
May have been, actually. Have you seen that documentary, Hearts of Darkness?
I haven't. I have not.
Yeah. I know. I saw it. A good part of the Apocalypse Now production experience is in a book by Biskind called Easy Riders Raging Bulls, which my boss, John Milius, ordered me to shred. And I kept it and read it. And of course, one of my moments of great shame is sitting outside the Warner Brothers coffee shop with the book and having him walk by and ask me what I was reading. And it was the book, the very book he told me to shred. And I'm like, oh, shit. That was probably the lowest of my my time at Warner Brothers was that moment when you let the man down. But Milius told me a great deal about it. One of the points he made was UA didn't let him travel to the Philippines to location, or Coppola didn't let him come to the Philippines because Coppola was under the impression with the overages that UA would replace him as a director and install Milius. So Milius was barred from visiting the set, is how Milius told it at Warner Brothers. He couldn't go out.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you need to go out to the jungle in the Philippines on a production like that. I mean, have you read Jerry Zeismer's book, Ready When You Are?
Whoa, sorry.
All right.
So I'm happy I didn't flatten a hummingbird.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't.
Yeah, all of the scene in The Prestige with Christian
don't
Bale's
do that.
character. Sorry, spoiler on The Prestige, by the way. But
yeah, if you haven't seen a movie that's almost 20 years old, don't come here and expect to be spoiler protected, because we talk about things in an unplanned fashion. I have to point out to people who constantly like to barrage us with their sort of self-importance post to make themselves heard, like, you guys should do research. We don't often know what we're even going to talk about, much less to research it. We only kind of chime in on our personal experiences here. So back the fuck up.
Speaking of personal opinions, personal experiences and opinions and backlash, and then redos. Let's talk about the big one, about your thoughts about Blade Runner. Well, Blade Runner to begin with, and then the remakes or the re-edits of Blade Runner.
All right. I sense a conflict brewing, but let's just get at it. I think Blade Runner. Excuse me. It's not my reaction to Blade Runner. I think Blade Runner is one of the all-time best looking, shot at the Warner Brothers backlot, actually, a good part of it, good piece of it. And it's, in terms of art direction and production design, it's an incredible movie to look at. I was there, I think I told you, when they were putting together the director's cut at Warner Brothers. One of the editors.
Director's cut, I guess.
What's that?
A director's cut, but
yeah.
But
I think, if I remember right, it was kind of the first big one that they did.
Perhaps.
It was there. This was a director's cut with some ceremony around it. I mean, they brought in Harrison Ford's son Ben to do some scenes, and whether it's true or not, I swear to this fact, one of the editors on it told me that they pulled the unicorn scene from Legend, and he kind of said it laughing and goes, "Don't tell anyone." Which, in a way, I know Blade Runner purists would look for any excuse to stomp on anyone being critical of the movie, but that's a move that kind of makes sense, in a sense. Like, are you going to go out and dress? I got news for you. Unicorns don't exist, so you got to create one with a horse. Are you going to go do all that for the scene? Or if somebody says there's some outtakes in the vault from Legend that we can probably slide by, it's for people who are. Ridley Scott has been known in an expert sense to cheat the camera too, and to use tools in the toolbox to pull stuff off. It doesn't actually surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if that was a legit thing. Now, people who love Blade Runner don't want to hear it, and they just want to see me struck by lightning right now. But for even suggesting it. But I did hear that. I did hear that when the process was going on. And for me, you love this movie, if I remember right, don't you? You're a huge Blade Runner guy.
I don't know that that's the case. I appreciate it greatly, but I don't know that I'm a huge Blade Runner guy.
I appreciate it too.
Yeah, where I differ from you is probably think it's a good movie, whereas I'm not sure you do.
Okay, so I think it's a beautiful film to look at, and I love everybody in it. I love its director,
particularly for its day.
Yes, incredible. It's incredible. For me, the pacing is not what I want in my films. I mean, I can put on Blade Runner and I'm guaranteed to take a nap. Again, the Blade Runner purists are going to fucking come at me in droves. But the truth is, I think the movie's pacing for me is, I think the movie runs long. And funny thing, I said this last time we talked about this. I always thought, I look at the opening film crawl about androids attacking or hijacking a ship and busting loose, or some sort of rebel action that gets them going. And I've always felt that they should have shown that. They should have kicked the movie off, because we made the comparison to Star Wars, where
sure,
if it was just C3PO and R2D2 walking through the desert, okay. But when it's when it's like a Star Destroyer and a big fight and they have to eject, then you're like, wow. I kind of felt like Blade Runner could have maybe used something like that in the beginning, because once you're past how beautiful the film looks, it doesn't really give you too much. It's kind of a jumbled, in my opinion. And, of course, I was mocked heavily for that, but I had since seen Ridley Scott in an interview say he wished he could have put an action sequence up front. So clearly he was thinking the same thing. So when you want to cannibalize me for my opinion on this film, just know that Ridley Scott's on the record of to some degree agreeing with that.
And it's funny, we were again comparing it to, the whole Star Wars thing. We are talking about how Coppola and Brian De Palma were the guys who convinced Lucas, whose original cut did start on Tatooine.
Yeah.
With just Luke and his uncle and aunt, and to recut it and put the Star Destroyer up front.
Yeah, and that was a good move, and it was De Palma. De Palma at least takes credit for suggesting the crawl, to give you a bit of a backstory. And either Harrison Ellenshaw, who worked on Star Wars, or one of the crew members, one of the editors, said at one point that it was Marcia Lucas who suggested a clock. That when they go to hit the Death Star, there should be a countdown of sorts. The countdown being, the gun closing in on the rebel base, and that literally that we should have the sense of a countdown. And that's also a good point. And it's funny, you are very good at bringing up prior conversations, so thank you for that.
Well, I'm only doing. That's how come I asked up front if we're allowed to refer back to this mythical conversation we may or may not have had. That may or may not be in.
Oh no, we had the conversation. The conversation, if I remember right, started with my again. People will be critical of me saying this. My feeling that Blade Runner 2049 is 20 minutes too long.
I mean, that is where it started. So that actually started with who's the best current mainstream Canadian director, and I threw up Villeneuve as
Right.
Denis Villeneuve as certainly a candidate. Obviously, James Cameron's up there, and then of course your boy Cronenberg.
Well, we did talk about Cronenberg, and we said we were asking the question, what happened to him in his childhood? I mean, and we did point out one of my agents when I was at Warner Brothers later as an independent was Margaret Royfey, who was Cronenberg's assistant for a bit, and she said he was the nicest guy on the planet, which I do believe. He does seem like that, but his ideas, man, like what happened to this guy? Scanners, Videodrome. Videodrome's a great story idea, but the way to watch it is like, what am I looking at? What do you think? What do you make of Cronenberg?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, very nice guy, and everyone loves working with him and loves him as a person, and casts him in some acting roles as well.
Yes, he's good.
Yeah,
He's good as an actor.
But there's certainly some darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's the kind of guy who, as you say, I don't know if it's childhood trauma or just something hidden just below the surface. It's dark, and I mean, certainly he's toned it down since the days of Videodrome and scanners. But even things like Dead Ringers or Existence, or or more recent things, they have. There's a dark vision embedded in them.
I mean, I do like him as an actor, and to hear him speak in interviews is very interesting. He's a captivating speaker, but I have to say, if you told me there was a new Cronenberg movie coming out, I don't think I'm changing my weekend plans.
See, that's funny because last year when he did like the Shrouds movie, yeah, I of course rushed to see that. Yeah,
did you? And what was your opinion of it?
It's interesting and freaky, like but it's a meditation on death. Having in his case lost a loved one, and what you might do to bring them back.
Well, I mean, we would go to great lengths, of course, if
and
possible.
The protagonist does, yeah. And I mean, but obviously there's twists and issues that make the decisions people make more harrowing than they might have intended.
Of course, because it's a Cronenberg film. Look, you're right. he is a director that definitely has earned the right to be in the conversation, whether my tastes gravitate to his product or not. But you mentioned a bunch of Canadians, and they're all qualified. But I mean, did you actually sit through Blade Runner 2049 and be like, man, I'm loving every minute of this?
So I did a couple times in IMAX after having seen Arrival, sort of the movie that announced him as a
Hmm.
sci-fi director, having been more of a character-driven or sometimes action set piece, but even those
Hmm.
character type of director that taught people, wow, this is a guy who has vision for a sci-fi future, which led to Blade Runner of 2049 and the Dune movies. So
I
yes,
felt like
I watched that.
2049 was like the
Arrival.
runtime on the movie. Go ahead.
Arrival, I watched 2 nights in a row because it was just so good. It was such a thoughtful, non-shoot 'em up alien invasion movie where the protagonist is a female linguist, which is not how most people do films like of that
No,
genre.
that was a good film. That was an interesting film. And worth watching. And Blade Runner. I mean, I get a lot of heat for my opinion on Blade Runner. I've been saying it for years that I think it just needs one additional action element because once I'm past the beautiful visuals, I kind of, you know,
Including Sean.
Sean Young does her bit. By the way, I don't know if I told you, and he hates that I tell this story, but Bill Daly was in his office when she bolted by his window dressed as Catwoman looking for Tim Burton. And he was like, did I just see a Catwoman? He didn't really know. But get this, he goes to the restroom and Tim Burton's hiding in there. So that's
Wow.
his that's his Sean Young moment. I actually think the business can make you crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, but I actually think she's actually quite good in the film. There is Sid Mead told me and actually showed me some art once upon a time that there's a sequence that they did not shoot, which is when Roy Batty goes into Tyrell Corp to kill him and he pops his head apart. That he, in the script, or one of the versions of the script, according to Sid, he pops a replica apart, and in the next level up is a sarcophagus where Tyrell's dead body is, and like the creator's been dead the whole time, and the empire is run by like machine drones, and they didn't shoot it, but it's an interesting concept, and there is some art for it floating around.
I mean, it is an interesting concept and certainly reflective of our times or our times to come in the near future.
Do you find Deckard likable in Blade Runner, and should anyone even care if he's likable?
Well, I don't know if you should care if he's likable or not, but I don't know. I mean, he's a man or possibly a replicant. Oh, spoiler, by the way, in this
Yeah,
film.
way to go. Do you
Um,
think they knew that at the time, though? Let's talk about that. Do you think because that theory was running around all through the '90s, and do you think they just kind of made it that way in
well, they say
2049?
that well, it wasn't even 2049. I mean, it was, with one of the new cuts suggested that he was
What? Because they do the like, what is it? The origami of
or
the.
a unicorn at the end. Yeah. Oh, sorry, spoiler.
That's the proof. So Edward James almost knows all along that
By the
Deckard is
way,
a
those two
replicant.
guys, you see them together, you couldn't tell them apart.
Yeah. He knows all along that he's a replicant.
Deckard himself
No,
or Harrison Ford
no,
or
Edward
or
James Olmos.
not.
What's his character's name in the movie? What's it?
I forget.
Yeah, I forget too. Oh, you're the fan. You're supposed to be the fucking fan of it. Way to go.
I said I'm like you. I think it's a good film, which I have seen
Yeah,
several times in different incarnations. But um, I don't know if he knows. I don't know. I don't know who knows. I mean, Sean Young's character doesn't know she's a replicant.
but Tyrell says that she's beginning to suspect in the beginning of the movie, and Deckard identifies her as a replicant right out of the gate.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no mystery with that. My question was, I mean, you're saying that in one of the cuts they make it clear he's a replicant, and
Yes,
hmm,
and Yeah, and it changes with or without the voiceover, depending which version you're watching. And Ridley Scott and Harrison Ford disagreed, right? So one of them thought he was, and the other thought he wasn't.
Which one thought what? Do you know?
Uh, I do, but I'll let let audiences make up. I don't want to spoil everything for everyone. So,
So you're saying Scott believed he was a replicant and Ford thought no.
or vice versa.
All right. Well, look, it's there for anyone to watch and enjoy. But I remember at the time, yeah, much to the pain and anguish of Blade Runner fans everywhere. I don't think the installation of the cut I witnessed at Warner Brothers was this work of art slash triumph that everyone was hoping it would be.
But the final cut sort of is supposed to be the definitive version, right?
I don't know. At this point, I don't even know. I mean, it's a beautiful film, and it's a film everyone. It should definitely be. It's definitely in like the pantheon of great film accomplishments.
You know what else
I
is good
can't.
is Blade Runner 2049.
Do you think so?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I saw that a few times in a row. I saw it over and over again in IMAX.
Did you?
Yeah.
Now, what is it
Also,
about Blade Runner 49 that you love so much?
I like all of Denis' films, just very thoughtful. I mean, just a movie that you ponder over as well as enjoy in the moment. And
Mm.
yeah, it's reflective both of particularly given the premise just of the human experience and whether we're the people who are best at it, and and particularly in the encroaching AI age. Um, how how dangerous that is, or how much they in fact understand it better than we do. And
Hmm.
by the way, overlapping themes with Dune and the ancillary content around it.
Let me guess. And you love the Dune movies.
So if you do you remember the pandemic?
I do.
So there was COVID,
Yeah.
and we were locked down for for an extended period of time. And I, as an avid moviegoer, and just avid many things, but I wasn't doing many things at all during that period. Like everybody, I was locked down. The first movie I saw after the pandemic, after the lockdown was finally lifted, and people could congregate again, because even after the lockdown theoretically ended, there still were no
Hmm.
movies in theaters. Dune 2049. So it has a special kind of meaning. I saw a screening of that with your
Dune
boy Denis.
2049 now.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Look, I'm glad there's a personal attachment to it. It's interesting because
BL 2049, but yeah. BR.
um, yeah, I mean, all right. I mean,
Be interesting.
yeah,
I know we and many people have talked about David Lynch's uh, Dune, and
right.
I
I'm
think having rewatched it a couple times, sort of in advance of the new Dunes, not 2049. Um, I give it more credit than I probably originally did. I mean, to me, the biggest issue with that was that trying to tell too much story in too little time. Like, I mean, it would just try to compress, like actually tell everything rather than chop pieces out. I mean, I think with the new ones, at least they wisely cut the story in two. You know, the cynical amongst us would say money grab, but I think there's a real reason to do it if you want to get the richness of the story. Whereas the Lynch version, which again, I in retrospect and having re-seen it a couple times, and just admired more than I originally did. Yeah, it's trying to do so much in the format of a single feature film, which I think was pretty difficult.
Well,
Plus,
down
of
the
course, your boy Sting making
I I actually like
we'll
Sting in
kill
the
him.
film. I actually like Sting in the film, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think he puts I think all
Sting
the actors in the Lynch version put through a great performance, to be totally
Sting's
honest with you.
Sting's a musician who can act, by the way.
He can, yes, he can. So about 100 yards from our bunker on the Universal backlot is the De Laurentiis offices, and it was well known that they were trying to get Lynch in there to do a Lynch cut for the better part of like 30 years. And he just would have nothing to do with it, which is sad because he did actually do some interesting things in that movie. Where the movie falls apart for me is they clearly ran out of the budget when it was time to do the action sequences and the effects. And those are two things you need to have firing on all cylinders in a movie like that. I think if you cannot, at the pivotal point of impact with the battle scenes, if you cannot deliver those, then you've lost your audience because the intrigue is one thing, and the intrigue for book fans, I don't know if they consider the intrigue to be at the level that Herbert staged it at, but the action sequences are just not good in the film, honestly. And but the actors are good, and Kyle MacLachlan is it's fun to hear him talk about it. But one of the things he did that was unique is I think his eye for costumes is incredible, and the industrial machinery soundtrack. Toto told me in studio once that they cut the deal for Dune at Bob's Big Boy with Lynch, which makes sense, right? Because he was in there every week. But I think the industrial, Eno also had your boy also had a hand in the music with the prophecy theme. But I love the sound effects, the grinding steel and the mechanisms that he like layered the atmosphere with, and the costumes and the idea of the heart plug and all these sinister sort of like this sense of evil, like Kenneth McMillan as the Baron. Like I really liked that performance. Some people have canned it since, but I remember at the time, when they had those like syringes going into his face, like going, man, this guy did create a world. He created a tapestry here. And then, of course, it gets to the moment that we're all waiting for, which is when they two sides decide to fight it out. It just underachieves. I mean, a lot of the effects. I mean, I don't necessarily. Carlo Rambaldi, who did E.T., did like the Guild Navigator, and I wasn't. I love the idea of it being in a tank and rolling in like an industrial machine, but I was like underwhelmed by that in the full space sequence, and it confused a lot of us when we were young. If you read the book, you had some insight, but do you think that film captured the book's essence, so to speak?
Um, Again, I think it had a hard time doing it. I mean, you're citing budget, and I'm citing time, and I think
Yeah,
that those are contributors. And I think that it's just like it's a hard adaptation to do. Period.
right.
And you know, and again, retrospectively, I think Lynch did a much better job than I might have thought when I was a kid.
I do agree
Uh,
with that too. Yeah, I agree with you.
and by the way, such a departure from the movies he'd been doing up until that point. So it's just
Mhm.
you know,
He is
for a
when
guy
you think
known for
about.
like, yeah, for an Eraserhead, Blue
Yeah,
Velvet kind of guy, this was a bit of a change of pace, right?
right, and he is an interesting choice for Dune. He because Steve Surgic and I always argue about that. He loves Eraserhead, and I'm like, frankly, like, but but I do like Lynch is an interesting choice, but he did do some things right with it, and yeah, the time constraints are part of the problem. And every character has an inner monologue, and there's really too much of that. And you know, the movie is what it is, and I'm glad it's there for some people to enjoy. There's multiple cuts of that, but according to
Now, would you stick your hand? Well, you kind of had to, but would you stick your hand into the box, and how do you think you would have handled that?
well, he had no choice, right?
I
It
know,
was either
so
the hand goes in or
or
yeah,
you're done. But would
yeah.
you could just take it?
Well, it's nerve induction, right? So you're gonna have to do it. So the hand goes in.
Yeah.
But I actually felt that sequence was done better in the Lynch version, honestly.
Hmm.
I didn't love the effects on the hand showing the flesh burn off, but I thought the way they kind of staged it was a little bit better. I mean, I think both versions of the film, of the both versions of the book, they both have their moments that are done real well. I really did like the industrial feel of like the still suits and the mechanics and all those things, even though I'm sure they were torture to implement on the set. But yeah, that's it's interesting. And they shot that all in Mexico, I think, if I remember right.
Hmm.
When was the last time you seen it?
Which?
Dune, 1984, is it? Was it four?
thereabouts, or yeah. As I say, within the
What?
last 4 years, well, certainly within the last 5 years, but possibly more recently. But on the big screen within the last 5 years.
Oh, really? You saw it on the big screen
Yeah,
in
because
five.
yeah, in advance of of New Dune.
Okay. You know who
So yeah,
also is good in it is Smith as the Beast Raban, and
oh,
how
yeah.
he pulls like the cow tongue off and starts eating it, and just. Did I tell you about the time Michael Lang directed Kenneth McMillan on like an episode of The Commish or something, or I think it might have been Our Family Honor. Did I tell you about this?
I
Uh,
don't know. I don't think so.
Michael Lang, this is a quick story. Michael Lang is a huge Dune fan of the Lynch version of Dune, and he's got the bear in there for a scene. He's playing a commissioner or something. And Michael Lang stops him and says, "Listen, before we do this scene, can we prep with something?" And Kenneth McMillan's like, "Yeah, what do you want?" He's like, "Will you just say for me, he who controls the spice controls the universe?" And McMillan's like looking at him like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, just say for me, just once. He who controls the spice controls the universe." And so McMillan's like, "He who controls the spice controls the universe." He's like, no, 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 no. I need you to really say it. He's like, "He who controls the spice controls the universe." No, he's like, "No, like really, like you were doing it in the movie with like the spit flying and like." And eventually he worked McMillan up and he started doing the whole theatrical Shakespearean, "He who controls this." And Lane goes, "Good. Now we can start." And he just did this exercise. I don't know for his own, humor or what, but he did say McMillan was great from there on out. So, and he was also in Ragtime. Let's not forget his performance in Ragtime.
Yeah.
So I did not expect to talk Dune today, but I'm glad that you brought it up.
Well, it's funny because we keep on referring back to this mythical Monday show, and this time we veered off. So just to be clear, as you keep on saying, not only is this not scripted or rehearsed, there's no research or background. In this case, we do have a reference point to ourselves,
Yes.
and we use it sparingly.
Well, I have to remind people that these are the same conversations you'd get at dinner or over coffee or on a set. And people sometimes like to say, "Well, why didn't you, when you talked about this film in 1967 and this actor dying of cancer, why didn't you do your research?" We don't know that the conversation's going to hit on these things. And that's one of those points that people are often critical about, like the same way, like when you go out to dinner, you don't have it all researched. You just start. And that's exactly what you get here as a conversation sort of based on
Unless
our
you do,
experiences.
but I think that would be frustrating to your dinner companions.
Oh, for sure. Well, we do know people like that. This is a message to everyone who loves to make that comment in the comments. People hate that fucking guy.
They do. Yeah.
People hate
Yeah.
that fucking guy. People hate that guy who says you should do your research. People hate that guy at parties. They hate him socially, and they hate him in the comments. So maybe just take a different approach. But we talked a great deal about the loss of Duvall at the time and the Godfather, and we actually had some fun conversations about the production of those. It was a good conversation, and
Yeah, not to
sorry,
mention that the guy was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, one for Tender Mercies, right? So
yeah.
yeah. So
And who would have thought? Who would have thought that THX 1138? I'm surprised they haven't remade that as like a TV show or something.
yeah, it's funny, and I to be honest forgot that he was the lead in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great chase in the end, and there's a sequence that's cut that there's actually like Chewbacca, and I think that's where Chewbacca comes from. THX 1138. At the end, when he finally climbs up to the surface, there's like a bunch of Chewbaccas, and the executives were like, "You should put that up front," and that's where the catchphrase from Lucas, "Put the freaks up front," comes from. Is the
Appears to be heading outside the city. Repeating, he appears to be heading outside the city.
All I can do is note your information.
Please come back. You have nothing to be afraid of.
THX account is 6% over budget. The case is to be terminated.
Discontinue operation. Report to Thermal Station 62. Discontinue operation.
We have to go back. This is your last chance to return. You have nowhere to go. You cannot survive outside the city shell. We only want to help. This is your last chance.
The editorial notes from the studio in THX 1138. And famously, Warner Brothers asked for their money back from Lucas when they saw a cut of the film. Oh, and that's why they didn't do Star Wars, actually. Lucas had a little bit of a hostile resentment after the THX experience. And then, of course, he bounced with American Graffiti and showed what he's capable of.
And what Harrison Ford can do.
Yes, and Harrison Ford was also in what? Apocalypse Now. It comes back around.
It's all the same thing.
You should read Jerry Zeismer's book because he talks about that production to a great degree, Apocalypse Now. And it's fascinating. He's in the movie too. He's like the CIA operative in that lunch. But he has really good insight on that and other productions he served on around that time. Pretty fast.
Do they have the outtakes, the Chewbacca's that were not in THX, or do they?
They must.
Are there cut scenes with like a young Jar Jar Binks?
No, I don't think so. That's a character I think is getting some love now, right?
Is it?
Isn't he kind of like been relitigated in the minds of the audience goers? Haven't they?
People who were kids when the prequels came out loved him. I don't know that anyone else did. You're saying that now people who were not kids then, people who sat through that as adults.
I don't know. I mean, look, I've tried to block those movies out and pretend they don't exist, but I do see him. I mean, I actually feel bad for the actor because there's nothing worse than taking a job and being like besmirched for your career because you took a job in the movie.
You know who had it bad was Jake Lloyd, who played young Anakin in the first prequel, and he would be. My friends actually did PR for him, and he'd get beaten up at school all the time because people wanted to say they beat up Darth Vader.
That's terrible. Who are these people? Who are these people?
I don't know. I hope they're listening and feel bad about it now.
I hope you are ashamed of yourself. I mean, that's a terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
He's good, though. He was actually good in Jingle All the Way. Remember with Schwarzenegger?
Yeah.
I'll save my Schwarzenegger stories for another day. I'll also save my Rutger Hauer stories for another day from, my meeting with him. Blade Runner did not come up, but I do think in terms of what we're discussing, Blade Runner itself, I think we're pretty clear. We're on opposite sides of the fence on that. I'd love to see what Siskel and Ebert said about Blade Runner.
I mean, it's funny that you say that we're opposites because I think we're both we're neither are huge fans, but I mean, I'm a fan, but it's not like you're a hater and I'm a lover.
Right. I guess that's true. People will make more out of this than really exists.
Yeah. Now the headline's going to be big rift on Combat Radio. Ethan and Eric not only not talking to each other, possibly at least one contract out on one or the other of them.
Oh, my brother, I don't ever see there being a time where we're not talking to each other. You're too fine. You're too fine a human being.
Well, likewise, obviously, and not only that. I don't. If it ever came down to taking, one of us taking a contract out on the other, we should talk it out first. So let's just make that agreement. If you're ever thinking of putting a mob hit on me, Call me
This
first.
is like the Fitzcarraldo conversation with like Herzog and the actor he openly conspired to kill on the set. What's the Klaus Kinski, the craziest man alive. You know that story. You
I don't know
can't.
about that.
It's like I love Herzog. I love listening to Herzog, and you know, uh, you can't turn it off when he starts to explain a situation. And I love that he's so honest about. Yes, Klaus Kinski and I working with Klaus was like surviving the seventh level of hell, and we openly conspired to murder each other, and I promised to burn down his hut with him in it. You know, it's just it's we will never reach that level. We did talk last time around though about a lot of things that you know a lot of things came up in regards to the Godfather conversation, and somehow Michael Mann worked his way into the conversation. I can't even recall
We
how
did.
these
There was a
things
lot of
happen.
talk. There was a lot of talk about heat, which was and part of that came from because the current movie Collateral 101
Oh
with Chris
yes,
Hemsworth, Mark
which you
Ruffalo.
recommended. You recommended it,
I
correct?
do. I mean, it's like some would argue it's Heat light, but it's got a lot of homage to it. So it's an L.A. heist movie with a lot of attention to detail and some storylines surrounding different characters coming together. So a bit of a bit of a not just homage, but just something that is inspired by. Now we bring that up because this is just one more example of somewhere where you differ from the majority of people, and
Yeah.
you particularly differ from the lovers. Just like there's lovers of Blade Runner and there's lovers of Dune, there's obviously lovers of Heat. There's obsessive lovers of Heat,
Yeah.
and you disdain them all. And I did mention that there was a one funny review. It wasn't actually a funny review, but a funny line in one of the reviews of the movie I read. A critic said, that this is Crime 101's worth seeing. In fact, it says you've already seen Heat 1,000 times. Why not take the night off and go see this?
Well, there are some dedicated fans of that movie, and not to discontinue my trend of pissing off enthusiasts everywhere, whether it's getting the Blade Runner fan nation to hate me for one opinion, or Dune, or this. But this is just a movie, and with all respect to my friend Kevin Gage, who's the best thing in it, in my opinion, who played Wayne Grow, and we love him around here. This movie goes into too many places for me. It's way too like we have the Pacino's wife having an affair, and the stepkid who can't get picked up, and De Niro picks up a librarian or something and a bookstore clerk and gets her a glass of water, and Judd's having an affair on Kilmer. It's like I don't need any of that in my movie. I think you should just go down the straight line. Not to sound like Walter Hill, but the movie's about the crime element up against the cops. And that's really where I think you should focus on. And that's my personal opinion. And people get upset because they say that that is what makes it a saga. We, you know, Steve Surgic, the director, again, who directed Your Cousin, I think, a few times, we always talk about that scene in the cafe. And we just, we heard about that scene prior to the movie coming out, and I just don't think there's a lot. I thought for sure, I'm like, well, if there's that scene, it's got to end with their guns drawn, right? That's where that ends. You don't have a conversation with your antagonist and say, I'll see you around, or do you? Well, in this movie, they do. In this movie, they do. But I thought this is probably where the third act gets launched. Is this face off? There's a conversation, and boom, it goes south. The way Milius wrote it in Extreme Prejudice for Walter Hill, and I read that script too, which I think is loosely inspired, or maybe even a reimagining of like The Wild Bunch. Same sort of principle: cop versus criminal, face off, go at it. And I just felt like, wow, there's a lot that's discussed here, but not a lot that's discussed. And I felt like that should launch the third act. But the movie just goes in so many places, and we we talked openly. I forget what your angle is on this, but would you? It's also a movie of extreme convenience, like when their driver cops out, but they happen to be in a cafe where they know the grill man from prison years earlier, ask him to jump in as the driver, and he says, and he's got his own story going. And then earlier, my question was, would you like pick up a guy at like a drive-through donut shop? I know it's prearranged. You don't really know him. You don't know his style. You haven't rehearsed the stunt with him. You haven't gone over they don't even know who he is. He doesn't. He has to ask him to identify himself. Would you rob an armored truck with this individual, knowing nothing, virtually nothing about him, just because you need the guy? And do you actually need that? I mean, the story requires that guy because that's again another storyline in a movie loaded with storylines. I don't know that you need him on the job, but you got him on the job. Would you take him on the job? Eric Mark, you're robbing an armored truck. Go.
So with someone who's essentially a stranger, so I can't speak for everyone else, and I know that I'm making the choice that most people probably would not. But I'm like, yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
That's right. I'm a bit more of a risk taker than most people,
You are, my friend. We actually pointed out that last time around too. You, in fact, are the risk taker that few of us are, and you would go ahead with the robbery. I don't think you can buy a shape charge in another state and drive it. I mean, that's its own set of crimes, right?
But I don't know if you recall this. Early in the pandemic, I was kind of like when the lockdown ended. We've already discussed that, but one of the things I kind of jumped on a bit of the game show circuit. I was as a contestant on a few game shows, as people do, and one of them was Chain Reaction. Yeah, Chain Reaction with my my buddy, other Eric Keitel, and another one of our friends, Travis Goodman. And I do actually just have to interject on myself in telling this story that the first time it was broadcast on the Game Show Network, and they always ask you, you can't be an actor, you can't, like all this stuff, like because they want real people because it's not relatable. Otherwise.
So you lied is what you're saying.
Well, no, you can be actors, but you can't, you don't want to have been on. Certainly, you don't want to be on too many game shows because they don't want to have the same people. People say, "Hey,"
right.
But we're going. Okay, already this was bizarre. So this show's been around for a while. There's 3 people on each team. Usually, they're huddled around a sort of a table, like a Family Feud kind of table, just beside each other, talking through answers and stuff. Because it was the end of the lockdown. Everyone had to be 6 feet away from each other. So I'm 12 feet away from one of my two. We can barely hear each other on the set. And we're yelling, answers and stuff at each other. But meanwhile, they cut to commercial. It's Travis doing a commercial for packaged mashed potatoes. Like one of the first time I saw the first product. So they actually have a contestant, just a regular guy off the street contestant who's immediately in a commercial, which makes going to make the people wonder if you recognize him. If some of this is not quite as it's there's entertainment people involved in some of these things. As it turns out. But anyway, that aside, that was an early game show I did during the pandemic era, and then did a few other things after that.
And this story is to draw a comparison to the armored truck heist in Heat that you would in fact work with the
reason I bring it up, so they say what's the name of your team, and we're like we're the risk seekers, like that's like, so we're not like, it's not just that we're not risk averse. We're actually looking for risk. And the host asks us, so why are you guys the risk seekers? And we're like, well, to give you an example, other Eric and I, we, when we decided to go skydiving, we did it on a Groupon. And there's like, what? And like I said, it turns out, given our experience, a sale is a great thing. Getting the best deal on anything is a great thing. Skydiving and maybe LASIK are things that maybe you shouldn't do with a Groupon.
But you enjoyed your skydiving experience, if I remember right.
Oh, well, this is a different one from the one that you're thinking about. There is one with the aforementioned cousin Petey, that we've shared a few times on this program. This one was the one where, after having been to Paris Valley, where the biggest skydiving facility in the world, Eric and I and a couple other friends drive up to the kind of skydiving facility that gives Groupons, back of a hangar north of LA. I mean, hard to find.
Yeah. Yeah.
The four guys running.
There's chicken fighting in one corner. There's something nefarious in another corner. And oh yeah, you're here for the skydiving lesson. See that guy with the hole punch behind the
Well,
chicken
that,
wire
that that guy
cage.
who seemed to be a little stoned, and like there's
Always
being
a good
stoned as
sign.
a student in the other story, but this one, yeah, the instructor seemed a little stoned, and whatever is whatever, but you don't necessarily want the guy who packed your chute to be high, right? And
No.
our other two friends are kind of terrified to begin with, and because they've never done this. Eric and I have done this before, but we asked the guy. We've heard like when you go into the arch position, and when you're jumping out of a plane, terminal velocity for humans about 120, 125 miles an hour. Could you possibly go faster than that? He's going, yeah. If you don't deploy the drogue chutes that gives you stability, and you go into a nosedive rather than rather than the arch position, you can go up to 200 miles an hour. We're like, really? And we're like, can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
To Eric, that sounds good.
The stone guys are like, no one's ever asked, but yeah. And so,
Right. Come to think of it, we've never even thought about that. But yeah.
But the reason you don't want to do it is because when you deploy your chute, if you deploy at 200 miles an hour, you will simultaneously dislocate both shoulders.
Yeah.
And so, which you don't want. So we do jump out of this very rickety plane they have on like the other the higher end facility. And then we go into dives. The people from the ground who saw it said it looked like people were just falling out of the sky. They had never seen anything like it before. It was, I will admit, it was actually a little terrifying. The ground seems like it's coming up, to you very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But anyway, the very abridged version of that story is what we told the game show host on Chain Reaction. If you want to go back and watch.
So the answer is yes. I would execute an armed robbery of an armored truck with a guy I don't know. I have no problem whatsoever, because I would walk onto a Nigerian runway and get on a cargo plane from the 1940s and skydive out of it. Which, by the way, that reminds me of that scene. Your story reminds me of that scene from Masters of the Air. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
They decide they got to bail out, and they're having the argument over the bomb bay of like, go. He's like, no, I'm the commanding officer. You go. He's like, it's my ship. You go. But when they jump, you're like, you kind of get a sense of, wow.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not robbing an armored truck. The other thing about that scene, though, real quick in conclusion with Heat, is when they storm aboard that armored truck and they start going through what to steal, and a lot of it they're discarding. Nah, it's all going. We're not pulling this heist off. We're not pulling this heist off for select items on an armored truck. We're taking everything with us, and we'll go through it later. They're just kind of like throwing the bonds and whatever, and then of course they get away in an ambulance and light it up, and the heist itself has a pretty high sticker price just to pull it off. But yeah, I piss a lot of Heat enthusiasts off because I do think the movie kind of goes left, right, everywhere it should, but in that movie goes everywhere it can possibly go except towards the objective. It's almost like Michael Mann's intention was, how can I bog this story down? And by the way, that shootout, think about this for a minute. The big scene, right? Mm-hmm. Now we've already talked. They have the face off in the cafe. It doesn't fire off the third act like I believe it should, but later they go in and they rob this bank. They're in the bank. They're in the safe. They're packing up the money. Then the cops get the tip and they get down to the bank in LA and LA traffic before those guys clear the bank. What? And then there's this shootout and there is no aerial surveillance closing in on. I mean, this is Los Angeles, and they basically escape by running through like a Trader Joe's parking lot. They get in like a station wagon, and are you buying that?
I mean, I've believed less plausible things. So,
well, yeah, of course. And I think you think that the Loch Ness Monster is real. So I'm going to cut you some slack, but
not saying real, but certainly quite plausible.
Okay. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like they're great sequences. They're directed really well, but in terms of logic, like explain to me in Los Angeles how you can get a tip in a police building and get to the bank before that robbery is done. Like before they're even all out of the building. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think you corrected in the edit somewhere where you get the tip somehow the night before and you stake it out, or a restaging of the logistics is probably how you fix it. If Michael Mann cared to hear that, but Mann is interesting in a sense that he employs a great deal of technical advisors who've experienced what he's trying to capture, and he should be commended for that. They bring something to it, particularly in Thief. But at points, the movies are frustrating because they're just like, what? What is happening here? They're like, there is no helicopter. These guys are literally, it's the Battle of Ramadi downtown, and there is not a single helicopter. There's nothing. And these guys are blasting their way through town. It's a 3-man fire team. And they're blasting their way out, and one guy gets clipped. The other two, manage to escape, and they've got their veterinarian guy who stitches them up back or whatever they do. And I understand that part's pretty interesting, but I don't know. I'm not really fully on board the heat machine, no offense, or the thief machine either, because I think that guy.
Wow. All right.
I'm sorry. Anything else you want me to? Any other fan base we can piss off today before we wrap up? Anyone else we can?
One more, because the other thing I've seen, recently, and I resaw it because I saw it originally at TIFF at the Toronto Film Festival with my mom, by the way. Was Epic, Elvis Presley in concert, the Baz Luhrmann's new concert film.
Right.
So you want to piss off the Elvis people, or more broadly fans of music. This is the time.
Well, you really enjoyed this, if I'm not
Really
mistaken.
did. So in fact, okay, I wasn't even going to mention this because, but I saw it at TIFF, and then I saw it again when it was released, end of last week. And it goes into wide release this week, outside of IMAX films.
Yeah.
Or outside of IMAX theaters. Between when we recorded this mythical episode and today, I saw it again.
Really? Good for you. You liked it that much?
Did I? Well, this time I saw it with my boy Justin, who we done some shows with, notably, and our other buddy Bill, who directed me in the short film Contacts, amongst other things. So yeah, I figured they would enjoy this, and they did. Loved it.
So, my favorite Elvis of all time is from Bubba Hotep, but I'll save the details of that for another story and another day. But Bob Wall claimed to have trained Elvis in martial arts. Did you ever hear him say that when he was in studio with us? He talked about that on several occasions. And I just picture Elvis showing up in like the scarf and sunglasses, and we had talked about this. You and I had wondered when Nixon made him a secret agent, and we talked about, do you think there's any credibility to that? Or do you think Nixon's administration said, go to the toy store and get get a badge. It'll be great. It'll be a great photo. We'll get all the Elvis fans on our side. And it was obviously a publicity stunt to some degree, but do you think there was any merit or any actual credential there?
Like he had any legal standing as a law enforcement officer?
I mean, the photo is fantastic. I got to tell you, Elvis and Nixon with that badge. I can't believe more people haven't hit upon that very thing, but one wonders, right?
I mean, I'm sure Elvis thought it was real.
Do you think so?
I don't know.
You think so? He probably did, right? I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Elvis probably walked around and said, I'm now a federal agent, boys.
I mean, your boy Bill Cosby used to always, after he got his honorary doctorate, insist people call him Dr. Cosby.
Did he?
Yeah. So he insisted,
he's also not my boy, by the way. Before we before we give people the wrong idea.
Yeah, you don't want to be Epstein in the middle of your own show.
No. I've got one Bill Cosby story, and it's Bill Cosby adjacent most of the way. So never mind that. But no, it's I'm glad you like that Elvis production.
I really did. Well, it's if any two guys, have a kinship, Baz Luhrmann and Elvis. I mean, both talented artists, but they certainly both love Flash.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
Yeah.
So what else can you recommend?
Well, funny, speaking of Canadian directors, as we have been and continue to do, so Daniel Rohrer, who did the Navalny uh, documentary about the Russian dissident, the opposition leader who was murdered by Putin, his latest film, the AI doc, is coming out. And at Sundance, I saw a couple AI documentaries. The one frankly wasn't very good. In fact, it was quite not good. And it just, this very opinionated person. It wasn't a very even-handed documentary, as a lot are not, by the way.
Mm.
But this one just had a lot of people who known and heard of speaking on her side. On the other hand, Daniel Rohrer got pulled together luminaries in the field, like CEOs of some of the big companies, as well as big researchers. Um, and the reason was because his wife or his girlfriend at the time was 6 months pregnant, and he was worried, given everything he was hearing about bringing up a kid in the AI world. And some of the people he talks to initially are very, very concerned and talk about how they don't know that their kids are going to live to high school age because of just the onslaught of AI and the changes it might bring to the world. Other people were much more optimistic, and so you kind of presented both sides. And it's actually the AI doc, How I Became an Apocalyptic Optimist. And so
okay.
Yeah, so he has a very, very well balanced and very good documentary. But so
Well, once you're at 6 months, I think you're pretty much committed to giving it a go.
yeah. I don't know that there's any legal recourse at that point. Certainly,
I think the party is on. I mean, I'm optimistic about it. As pessimistic, I am pessimistic some days, but optimistic other days. I mean, somebody told me that they tried to shut off an AI system and it wouldn't allow itself to be turned off. Did you hear that?
yeah, there was talk about that. Like it's like because it learned on its own, it realized what was going on and just said, "Hey, no, I'm not gonna." And then other time, like some earlier on, some researcher at some company had suggested that he was going to also turn something off or do something, and the AI tried to pick him up romantically, like started saying, tried to usurp the lover's place and be, so that it would have more
Oh,
influence over him.
that
So
definitely shows. That
that's not
definitely
the
shows
best, right?
No, not the best, and it definitely shows the ability to learn. I mean, I think it's going to suck the planet dry of water long before it becomes an apocalyptic Terminator style engagement. But I will tell you, if you want to see something well done about AI, I haven't seen these documentaries, and based on your recommendation, I want to. But if you go back to like the 1970s, there's a movie that's now hard to find called Colossus: The Forbin Project, which is really well done. And some people have a theory that it's hard to find streaming because what's his name? Who we all fucking hate, Elon Musk has an AI system named Colossus now, and he wanted to take the film, uh, you know, off the market, so to speak, to kind of protect what he's doing because it really kind of pinpoints a very grim picture. But it's worth seeing. It's worth seeing, especially in today's day and time.
So I had a crazy thing. This happened on the social media the other day.
Oh,
So,
really?
well, I mean, a friend of mine sent me a screenshot of a friend request to him from, as it turns out, Elon Musk. Which presumably is spam or some imposter, as there's so many. But he sent it to me having misread it, thinking that it said it was a friend request from Eric Mark, since we both have two four-letter names that start with E and M and have two
Mhm.
syllables. So he just saw it quickly, and he thought it was actually from me. Elon and I are not affiliated, as it turns out, but and I did not send it, although I imagine Elon didn't send it either. But that was
You
weird.
never
So that was
you never know. You never know in this day and age. Any other recommendations from you?
movie wise.
Yeah. And
Yeah, sure. Movie. Yeah, why not movie wise? Yeah, I mean, you had talked. Was it you who was talking about Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die? No.
no, that wasn't me. Was it good?
Yeah, with Sam Rockwell. Just
I
another.
like him. I like him.
And then we talked about Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, right?
Correct. Yeah. You liked it, right?
Also, I did a very fun, crazy, zany, also by a Canadian director. directors, it turns out. I know that this is, since that was one of the themes you wanted to discuss was Canadian directors. Who was the
I'm
all
open.
who
I'm open to it. I'm open to it.
yeah, so that's a little smattering. Oh, Send Help, by the way, is quite fun with Rachel McAdams and
Is it?
yeah,
I only have one recommendation. I think I made it last time we talked too. Netflix has
and
well, the
Dylan
galley.
O'Brien.
What's that?
Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, I should mention. Also,
Correct. Correct. I'll try and match wits with you. The galley sheets for No Quarter Kill All Masters were floating around for some time, and I got a phone call saying, you're going to want to see this Netflix series because it kind of has the same feel. And I actually tuned in with a sense of doom, but really enjoyed it. It was called Last Samurai Standing. I thought it was pretty good.
huh.
On Netflix. That's my recommendation. I'm trying to think if I've seen any documentaries. I haven't, but I'm coming up empty on that. But man, you've given us enough to do some serious homework over the next week or so.
I'm going to throw out one more documentary, and these are both movies that happen to see at Sundance, but that will be available either on streaming or, in case of the AI doc, in your local cinema.
Yeah.
Queen of Chess, surprisingly good film about this young woman who, not to give any spoilers about action movies that are coming out, but yeah, rises through the ranks of chess rankings from the time she's a young girl to oppose Gary Kasparov and
Oh yeah.
and rise towards the top as a woman. So which unfortunately in that domain, as so many others, has been difficult historically.
You say the name Gary Kasparov, and I can't help but think of our friend, a mutual friend of ours, a stuntman named Gary Kasper. So I picture this big, hulk of a human being playing chess, and when you talk, and then I realize, no, it's a Kasparov. So anyway,
But possibly related. Maybe they were one of them changed their names
could be,
to not
could be.
just
Let me check
like
my
like Bo,
note.
like Bowie changing his name from David Jones so he wouldn't be mistaken for the monkey.
Yeah, right. He did do that. How did we get on the subject of the Wizard of Oz last time? How did we find ourselves discussing that?
Oh, because in this episode, I mean, this is the hate episode. Maybe you don't want to title it that, but yeah, it turns out you are diametrically opposed in your opinion to the vast majority of people. And by the way, it's great to be an iconoclast, but another thing that fell by the wayside. We talked about the fact that 1939, great year for film, and it happens
Right.
the two big films, the two biggest films of all time, the Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz came out that year, and were both directed by Victor Fleming,
Yeah,
by the same
incredible.
person. Although with a lot of aides and people and second directors and things like that didn't necessarily get credit. At which point you brought up, oh, and by the way, everyone loves The Wizard of Oz. I'm not everyone.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not. I mean, that's so my daughter just saw it at Sphere and said that was a awesome experience. Other people love that movie. For me, it's just loaded with obnoxious characters, including the wizard at the very end that really needs to get punched in the throat for just like
Hey, spoiler,
basically.
spoiler.
Yeah, okay. So if you haven't seen Wizard of Oz, basically the wizard himself is a perpetual con man. And but I mean, let's be honest, none of those characters. I mean, would you go down a yellow brick road with any of those characters, and how long would that last? Not
Would
very
I
long.
or would other people?
Okay, so you would, but you would also rob an armored truck with people you don't know
Yeah,
and jump
fair.
out of a rickety plane and try to break the sound barrier with your drop. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
so maybe my opinion is not the most important right there. Yeah. So
no, I mean, look, for people who love The Wizard of Oz and people have loved it for a long time, I don't understand it. It's, we're going to burn a witch with a bucket of water. We're going to fight monkeys. We're going to have trees come to life and try and beam us with apples. It's not a fun movie for me, but the world loves that movie.
all right, and I've got
The
to
world
bring up
lo-
one anecdote that you might recall. That's my grade school, elementary school friend Jane Miller, who's gone on to be an actress of some note, and certainly talent and skill. her debut was our third grade, or grade 3 as we call it in Canada, our grade 3 presentation of The Wizard of Oz, where I was already cast as the narrator. So, Jane did a wonderful, remarkable, beautiful job as Dorothy. Do you say Dorothy or Dorothy? Anyway, until the very end. If people recall the last scene, she wakes up back in Kansas in bed, surrounded by family and neighbors who in fact were the characters she saw in Oz. And she after this brilliant, bring down the house kind of performance, sits bolt upright in bed and goes, "Aunt Henry, Uncle M," and what had been masterful brought the audience to roaring in hilarity.
Well, don't be too hard on yourself. Look, the performance is still, I'm
not hard on myself.
Sure was fantastic.
I was awesome. I'm talking. Jane.
Buddy, I want to thank you for taking the time to help resurrect a show here.
Yeah. So with a little bit of AI fine tuning, we can bring it back to what it was originally.
Well, I'm sorry if I failed you, but you, as always, are a professional of the highest caliber, and I want to thank you for taking the time. Things are about to get noisy here, so I'm going to cut you loose.
You didn't just make me better than I would be otherwise. You made me better than I could be otherwise.
Eric Mark, one of our all-time favorites. I hope we see you soon, man.
I look forward to it. I'm off to Little Rock tomorrow, and so I will be thinking about all of our listeners and viewers from there. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
They come out of darkness, sometimes with thunder, sometimes with lightning. Their presence means death. The prison master is afraid of him. The guards were afraid of him. The town is afraid of him. Lucifer is coming for you. Rest easy, Jack Carr said in a low tone. You're in the final 30 seconds of your life. No quarter. No quarter. Kill all masters. Coming soon